Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
And I'm Charles Rogers, and welcome back to Not the Bad Batch. We're back to our roots here, headed back to Mandalorian.
Love that. Honestly, I'm kind of excited to go back to Mandalorian because I feel like we just need like a break from Bad Batch. It felt like it was so long, and so now I'm like,
I agree. Somebody in my Twitch chat last night, or somebody somewhere was mentioning, God, it just feels like there's been so much Bad Batch all of the time. It was coming out for 20 weeks. It was coming out for, 4 or so months, 5 months. It was most of the year it's been coming out.
Right.
So yeah, it has been a lot of Bad Batch. Holy hell.
Yeah, it was, for us, it was 16, 17 episodes. So even though there's only 16 episodes.
Yeah, it was coming out for 4 months. I don't know how I got 20 episodes in my head when it was only 16.
Right. Yeah. It felt like longer than it was.
It felt like 5 months. So
it really did.
1/3 of the year was spent on Bad Batch, which worth it, but
yeah.
Well, we can't quite leave just yet. We are going to talk about our Mando season 2 episode 0 today, but before we do that,
okay,
there are a few minor notes because we recorded the finale episode, and then literally the next day, Bradley, you and I recorded the season retrospective. So we did this so that we could have a weekend off.
Right.
But the problem with that is stuff came out in between Mando season. Why did I say Mando season 2? I'm already in Mando season 2. I have left Bad Batch. This is going to be very hard for me. Stuff came out in between our finale episode and our retrospective that I want to address. There's 3 of them. One is the Camino weather thing. You said that you were confused by Camino not being stormy because this is the first time we've seen it.
Right.
It's not actually the first time we've seen it. The ARC Troopers episode of the Clone Wars actually had Camino as sunny.
I am shook.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, our friends over at Dark Side Divas, their episode on ARC Troopers dropped during this break in recording, and I was looking up a scene from that to confirm it as well, because I had heard kind of, it was the Clone Wars that it was sunny sometimes, and then they mentioned a scene that I wanted to watch. I pulled up the scene, and lo and behold, there it is, sunny Camino.
That's crazy.
It happens, but I guess because it was raining in the movies, every depiction of it afterwards in Legends was like raining.
Yeah, they were like, look, we can do fake rain.
Maybe that's why they kind of was like, oh, we'll do it as sunny or not raining in Clone Wars because we don't want to animate that rain.
Right.
We're not in a position to animate that rain yet.
I think that's exactly what it was.
It's okay. We still love Clone Wars, even if it wasn't quite on the Bad Batch's level of animation.
Right.
The second thing I want to bring up is the ending sequence. Now, I had heard that might be Mount Tantus on a planet called Wayland, which in Heir to the Empire was the Emperor's storehouse and cloning facility, where he made some of his clones. That has been confirmed by the StarWars.com trivia gallery to be correct.
Oh, all right. There you go. Oop, there it is.
So that's what that is. The planet is called Wayland. The mountain is called Mount Tantus. It is an Emperor's cloning facility and storehouse.
Gotcha.
Now, something that was pointed out to me about that scene is if you listen to the music, something really cool talking about Kevin Kiner's score. Bradley, have you seen Wicked?
Funny enough, I have not seen Wicked.
Wow.
But you want to hear a hilarious little story? I have
do.
read the book.
Oh, I do. I do love the book. It is.
So I've
in
never
my
seen the
top 10
play.
books.
I've never seen the play. I've read the book, but I know all the words to all the songs because of mostly Glee, but also because it's
Oh,
Wicked. I
bless
mean,
your
who doesn't love
heart.
the Wicked songs?
Bless your heart. I just realized you would have been entering high school around the
Yeah.
time Glee premiered. See,
No, Glee happened at the same time. I was literally going through school as the Glee kids were going through school. So they graduated when I graduated, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No wonder you're so fucked up and don't know how to read. Good Lord.
Ryan Murphy.
You grew up in the Glee generation. So there's a bit in, I'm not going to sing it for copyright reasons, but the bit in The Wizard and I, where she goes, unlimited, my future is unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
That bit is actually the same notes as Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's the first 7 notes of Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Okay.
That are just timed differently. And the reason I bring this up is somebody noticed that in the Wayland scene, as the camera's pulling back, or either it's pulling back or coming in, there's a bit where Rey's theme, the same notes play, just different timings on them.
Interesting.
As well as, much more noticeably in the last shot, the music that's playing over that is Palpatine's teachings.
That makes sense. Okay.
So there's a completely random diatribe about music. We didn't even have to.
Random ass fucking trivia.
But I wanted to bring it up because we love Kevin Kiner's music so much that I couldn't let the trivia fact go unmentioned at all. Third thing that I real fast wanted to bring up, we did speculate in the finale there was going to be a time jump. Apparently that was confirmed in an interview that there was going to be a time jump between seasons. Now I didn't go look for a primary source on this one. I wasn't able to take the 10 seconds to Google it. Okay. But a lot of people are saying that there was an interview on StarWars.com, and in that interview they did say there was going to be a time jump.
I mean, it's just the logical choice, but yeah.
It's a good place to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that, we can finally wrap up our Bad Batch coverage.
Good. It's wrapped.
You knew there was going to be.
I know. We're going to have to do some housekeeping on that.
Have to do some keeping, but it is wrapped, like all of you should be on a Friday night. Moving on to Mandalorian, we do actually have two pieces of Mandalorian news to segue us into our season 2 prologue discussion. The first and less important news, Carl Weathers, who plays Grief Karga, did confirm that he's in season 3 and he's also directing another episode in season 3.
That's such a strange thing to need to be confirmed. I don't know. I just assumed that was going to already happen, which is strange, but
yeah, but we don't know, because with TV shows normally you would assume that the cast is going to stay the same. With Mandalorian, not
that's true.
So much.
You never know.
Not so much here.
Right.
We already know 2 people who aren't coming back. So
yeah, it is strange.
But Carl Weathers did say that he is acting in it, and more importantly, he is directing another episode.
Right, because his first one is in season 2, right?
Right. It's
so
season
we'll
2, episode 4. It's the one where they have to break into the Imperial facility.
That's right. I remember that. Okay.
On Navarro.
Cool. All right. Can't wait for that one.
But in more important Mandalorian news, the Mandalorian Gallery episode about the finale is released. And with our watch of hot men doing Star Wars things, the entire internet was introduced to certain characters' stand-in.
Yes.
Who broke Twitter for a day. Max Lloyd Jones is the guy's name who was the stand-in. Oh my God.
It's so hot.
Where did that was what was behind the digital Luke Skywalker?
I know. It's so funny because you don't think like of it as being like a person behind it. Like you just think of them usually like as the character. You don't really think about the fact that there's like a third person like involved and it's or a second person involved. And it's like with Tarkin and Leia in the movies, you know, when they did the digital versions of them, it's like you don't think about, oh, there's a person that's just there with fucking dots all over their face. Like, you know.
Yeah, there's a person that has to be there, particularly in the case of like some of the ones that are really, really good. Like Tarkin in particular. Leia was kind of with the compositing on her face, but Tarkin, if you watch him for a few minutes, especially in some of the Death Star, the less well-lit scenes in the Death Star firing room, you can almost kind of trick yourself into thinking that that's Peter Cushing. Like almost.
Honestly, I think a lot of people did for or at least older people who maybe weren't as informed that he's not alive anymore.
I don't think anybody thought that. I don't think anybody thought that it actually was Peter Cushing because he's famously dead. But
you think so? But I'm sure there's some people out there who are like, "Is that
some very confused people?" Well, we'll get to this when we get to the finale of Mandalorian. But when a certain character showed up, the very first time I watched it on my phone, and it was my phone. It was 1:00 in the morning. And I was extremely confused because the face was not that great quality on my phone. I thought that it was Sebastian Stan the first time I watched it. Twitter had to confirm for me with big high-res pictures, and I watched the episode again that the next evening on my computer to confirm that no, in fact, they had digitally put someone's face on top of Max Lloyd Jones. I've been seeing a lot on Twitter that they should have just like cast Max Lloyd Jones in the part.
So I have a theory about that.
Okay.
I think that they did. I think that he, moving forward for season 3, will in fact be Luke Skywalker. And then this digital like thing, whatever, was like one of their look what we can do, you know, kind of things. And they only did it for the finale and that was it. And then moving forward, they're just going to use Max. I really do think that because I don't know if it'll be too hard to keep doing the fake face.
I have an alternate theory.
Okay, what's your alternate?
And the alternate theory, I've always speculated that some of the Tarkin stuff in Rogue One, that they might have also shot stuff with Vader, just in case they couldn't get it quite right.
Right.
They were gonna use Vader instead. That has kind of been debunked. I have watched some things that do explain more about where the Vader scenes in the trailer came from. But in this case, I feel like they cast somebody who looked a lot like Luke. Just, whoops, I've inadvertently spoiled who shows up at the end of Mando season 2.
Yeah, we're not supposed to know. We have to do retch. I'm just kidding. It's fine with this one. I don't care.
They cast somebody who looked like him just in case the CG couldn't work.
Right, exactly.
And that would be who is going to play him and things going forward if he shows up again in this. But then they actually got Mark Hamill to come in, and I think that is Mark Hamill playing him. From what I've seen of the second Gallery episode, I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and watch it beginning to end, but I've seen clips from it. From what I've seen, that's Max Lloyd Jones in the hallway, and that's Mark Hamill behind the face when he's actually having the dialogue.
So I actually watched the episode. Okay. And the reason why I said my theory is because when you listen to all of them talk about Max, I think it's very likely that, because the way they hired him, like he came in not knowing what he was doing. And then they were like, you're going to be Luke Skywalker. And then in his brain, he is going to be Luke Skywalker. And then you have Mark Hamill on set doing the exact same motions with him. So they're both in the same exact scene, in the same exact spaces, repeating the same movements. And basically Max is just copying whatever Mark Hamill's doing. So he's kind of like doing this alternate performance, but like trying to mimic him. And then you also have a stunt double. So there's technically 3 Lukes. So there's the one who does the action sequences, obviously, like the super athletic swinging and doing stuff. But then you also have Max doing that too. Because there's literally a scene where you see Max and he's practicing with the lightsaber and he's practicing the movements. So he also did it. So I'm thinking, I genuinely do think that he is Luke Skywalker moving forward, at least for this show.
I would like that. I definitely would like to see. I haven't been super wild about the main characters popping up in other things, and we'll get to my feelings on the finale episode of The Mandalorian when we get to it. But I would like to see, like, maybe Han and Luke and Leia pop up, particularly Leia. I would like to see pop up.
Me too, because I think I want to see more from her, especially since we got those, CGI scenes in Rise of Skywalker of her like with a lightsaber and doing stuff. I was like, I want more of that Leia. I know people don't like her like Sorcerer Leia, but I think Mary Poppins Leia is like literally my favorite thing in all of Star Wars. So all those people can suck it. I love Leia using Force powers. I love her using a lightsaber. So I want to see way more of that.
Yeah, before we move on to The Mandalorian, though, while we're still on this Maxilla Jones, Bradley, do you want to recount the discovery you made to me that absolutely like floored me when you sent me this text message?
Okay, so the other day when I was watching the gallery, I instantly texted you because I was like watching this whole entire thing and I literally got through most of it. And I was like, wow, that guy is really handsome. I was like, who is this guy? And then I looked up his fucking name. And he only has so many credits. And so out of the 3 credits that he's known for in all of, existence in the ether, one of them is from my fucking childhood. And I didn't even think about it until now. And now it makes so much sense that I'm a homosexual because he was in the straight to DVD version of the sequel to The Sandlot, which is The Sandlot 2. And he was the main kind of guy in that movie. And I just remember him being so hot as a kid. And I was like, oh my God, like, he's cute. Like, I didn't know that I was obviously a homosexual then, but like, I was so attracted to him at the time and I didn't think about it. And now I'm like, that's the same fucking guy. And the fact that he's Luke Skywalker makes him even hotter. So it's less like,
You sent that to me and I was at work and I was looking at my phone like, no. No way.
Right.
No way. Yeah, so Luke Skywalker was in The Sandlot too.
Yep. Loved it.
That provides us a nice transition. So for the next 8 weeks, we are going to be, I guess for the next 10 weeks, including this week and then the retrospective, we are going to be really fast doing some coverage for The Mandalorian season 2, just to catch us up to speed before Book of Boba Fett. This year is going to be all TV stuff. Next year, we're going to have to fill some gaps. Hopefully not too many gaps based on how much is fucking coming out next year.
Oh my God. We have 3 shows next year, so at least.
4.
I wasn't even counting Bad Batch. So you're right. We have
Book
4
of Boba,
shows.
Obi-Wan, Bad Batch season 2, and Ahsoka. No. Andor. Yes. And it was an A name.
Yeah. I was going to say Ahsoka's not until the following year. Probably.
But we real fast got to do Mando season 2 here.
Yes.
I do want to talk about, before we dive into, because we both rewatched the trailer. Before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about what was going on around Mandalorian season 2, because Mandalorian season 2 premiered in a very different world than Mandalorian season 1. So Mandalorian season 2 aired through late 2020. So it started airing in October of 2020.
October. Yeah, I see that. October 30th, so literally right on Halloween, basically.
Couple of things to note about what was happening. We had Rise of Skywalker at the end of 2019 and Mando season 1, the end of 2019. And then we had, like, about February, we had Clone Wars season 7. and then Clone Wars season 7 ended in like May. I think it was like May that it ended, May or June. We had no Star Wars for months because they were still in the middle of their pivot from films to TV. We had no Star Wars for months. Fallen Order hadn't even come out yet. Fallen Order wouldn't come out until like, I think November something. It was November 12th or 11th or 12th or something, 2020. So we were like deprived of Star Wars content for 4 months.
We really were.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, that is not looking to be the case in going forward.
Right.
But that's what was going on at the time is we hadn't had any Star Wars since Clone Wars season 7. Wow. And a lot of the fan discussion was still over the sequel trilogy and really vitriolic. Not helped at all by some things that were happening. And this is the part where we have to mention some stuff we try to avoid mentioning when we dive into the episodes. Late 2020, we were in the middle of an extremely contentious presidential election in the United States. That was basically just a big downer for everybody.
Really well, especially for the year that we had so far, because we were all in lockdown for 6+ months. So it was garbage.
We've been in lockdown since March. And it's worth mentioning. I want to mention it because it definitely colored how I felt going in to the second season. By that point, the Gina Carano stuff was well in the middle of happening. Now, she wouldn't do the stuff that specifically got her contract not renewed. That would come post November. That would come post November. She would actually get fired in, I hate using the word fired, but
yeah,
she would get her the news that her contract would not be renewed in, I think it was March or April. Because it was like our 3rd episode of the podcast of Goldsquadrongays, I think, that we had to address that. But there was well and truly in the middle of happening. That the stuff with her, particularly the pronoun stuff where she was making fun of people putting their pronouns in the bio and got a lot of backlash about that. All that stuff was in the middle of happening. So it definitely was something that was hanging over, especially the spaces I occupy in, like a cloud going into this season. So this season premiered after a huge glut of no Star Wars content and in the middle of a very tumultuous period in world history. That one of the main actresses on the show was not helping at all.
Oh, I know. I'm sure it was like a PR nightmare over there at Lucasfilm. They were like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, and I think that somebody can correct me if I'm misremembering this, that it was, I believe, the Disney executives specifically, or it was something on the executive level where the people that were like, we want her gone. But Darkside Divas pointed this out, shout out to them again, where the issue at hand with Disney is that when you sign the contract with Disney, you basically sign a thing that says, I'm not going to make a stir on social media.
Right.
This is why James Gunn and Chuck Wendig got the boot, particularly James Gunn, because you can't really, when you work tangentially for the mouse, you can't be in the middle of a controversy because then that makes them look bad.
Right. Because every article says Disney this, Disney that, and you know.
So they made the point that the issue was, if you just let the controversy die down and you handle it really well, you're generally safe. But if you go in guns blazing, Disney's going to be like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
And that was her downfall. So
yeah, that she just couldn't shut up about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have your opinions and they can be like your opinions. You just can't share them on
You
social
can,
media.
or you have to do it in like a really delicate way.
Right.
You have to make sure, because you're kind of a brand ambassador at that point for the Disney Corporation. Yeah. And the Disney Corporation looks at you and goes, "You're causing too much of a stir. We're going to cut you loose. Good luck. Have fun."
Right.
But that was kind of the world that Mando season 2 was premiering into. So gotcha. It had a bit of an uphill battle as far as being received the same way as season 1.
Right. I'm actually kind of laughing because you're bringing all this up and it segues really well into the actual trailer, because the opening shot of the trailer is the Razor Crest, like basically falling apart and flying through space, which is what literally the definition of 2020 was.
Yes. Yeah. No, the trailer, I rewatched it to prep for this episode. Yeah, the trailer opens like that broken ship. I remember seeing the broken ship shot. I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like the overarching theme of the trailer really is, here's some stuff that led Charles to think one thing and then another thing happened.
They did a really good job of that in this trailer, of misleading the fans. And I don't mean in a way like, not in a like vicious way, like we're promising something, not like the Rogue One trailer where they show you stuff that never
half
makes
the trailer
it into the goddamn
even in the
film.
Movie.
Ooh, that makes me so mad, because you know what? I know that there is a cutting room floor somewhere where all the good ass fucking shit from Rogue One is, and it's just sitting there on the floor, and they just stripped it away and it's gone, and I want to see that fucking shit.
They said that they filmed some scenes specifically for the trailer, and then on top of that, the entirety of Act 3 was basically a reshoot.
Right.
Like the best part of the movie, because famously Gareth Edwards like shot the entire movie with an ending where they survive, and then went to Kathleen Kennedy and pitched, hey, none of these people ever show up again. They're not in A New Hope. Wouldn't it make sense if they were all dead? And she was like, yeah, go do that. And he had to reshoot a bunch of Act 3.
That's so funny. I love that.
But Mando, Jon Favreau, has also said that he kind of makes Mando up as he goes along. So...
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I kind of get that, because I genuinely don't know where they're going in season 3, which once we get to the finale, we'll talk about why that is and why the finale is so controversial, because
I genuinely really thought, like at the end of season 1, I went, oh, this is going to be the rest of the series. This is going to travel around the galaxy trying to find the Jedi. And then that happens really quickly.
Very quickly. And then they even teased it in this trailer. So like, you were like,
Dave, you know you can drag some things out, right, Dave? You don't have to introduce a thing and resolve it 8 episodes later.
I was like, this is not like this is not Bad Batch, this is not Clone Wars, this is not Rebels. You don't need to like do it a couple days later. You can literally make us wait 2 years for this bullshit. Like it doesn't, we're gonna wait regardless. So it doesn't really, it's not like the show's going anywhere. So it's like, draw it out.
Well, we also didn't know at the time, season 2 was really the thing that really introduced that this is going to be a sequel to the animated shows.
Yes, there's a lot in season 2.
There's a lot. And there wasn't really in season 1, and we hadn't heard anything. Now, we sort of heard in the lead up, we heard rumors like, Rosario Dawson is going to be Ahsoka Tano. We heard that like Katie Sackhoff is going to be in it as Bo-Katan cries.
So they talk about that in the gallery.
Really?
In this last episode of the gallery, they talk about that. They said, with season 1, they kept the child a secret for so long, and it was in the first episode because they talked about how they told Mark Hamill about it and how he was one of the first people to know about the baby, and because they showed him the whole first episode when he came to set to film his cameo scene where he was the robot in the the diner or the cantina. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, he's Mark Hamill. If Mark Hamill shows up, you show him what you've got.
Right.
He's
So
Mark
they
Hamill.
told him about that, and they were like, "Look, here's the baby." And then they kept that such a big secret. So they talked about how in this season or the second season they didn't have to keep the secret as much because it was, everybody knew about Rosario Dawson. Everybody knew about Katie Sackhoff. Like it was just a known thing. Like there's just no way you could keep that a secret. You just kind of have to cast them and just, all right, here's who they are. So it's interesting to see how they kept the finale a secret. So I'll let you watch that to find out how they did that, but it's very good.
Always remember the fact that I saw Darth Sidious's face for the first time on the back of a cereal box leading up to Revenge of the Sith. And I got the first 3/4 of Revenge of the Sith. I experienced that through a comic book because they would release, like back in the day, no one gave a shit about spoilers.
Right.
So they would release the novels or the comic versions before the film was even out. And in the trailers, you would see promo material of spoilerish scenes from the film. That's where all the jokes in the late 2000s come from about this trailer is going to spoil the whole movie for you. Well, that's what they did at the time. They showed you what was in the movie. Like I remember I was in my friend Max's basement and he had gotten the first 3 issues of the Revenge of the Sith comic adaptation. And I read all 3. So I knew exactly what happened in the movie up to Palpatine giving his speech in the Senate. I knew everything that happened in the film.
Gotcha.
So looking at it the modern day of like, oh, we must not have spoilers. We must not reveal anything. It's the J.J. Abrams mystery box bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, people like to feel clever because they figured out what was in the thing. I'm like, no, just tell me what's in the thing.
Yeah, I think that's literally the mentality of this season. They were like, well, we can keep a few things a secret, but we can't keep everything a secret because it's just too hard in this day and age with social media and everything. It's just not something that you can do anymore. Like it's just the old way of making movies was, everything was a secret because there was no way to get the information out. So now it's like, since information is so readily available, it's just very much like, oh, yeah, that person was seen on set filming a cameo. Oh, okay, great. Like the paparazzi got a shot of Mark Hamill leaving a Hollywood set, whatever. Oh, we know that he did something for Mandalorian season 2. We don't know what it is, but we know he was there. So
this is why you get nowadays, like you get these like fake scenes that are filmed. I think they're filmed on sound stages with NDAs. Like you talked about in one of our pre-meetings, I don't think you mentioned it on one of the episodes, but you mentioned to me about the WandaVision 2 episodes that are filmed in front of a live studio audience. Is it, or no, it's just the first episode that's
it's just the first 2. Well, the first 2 are in the sitcom style. So yeah, it is the first 2.
So that one you had talked about how they had, it was just like family and close friends of cast members.
Right.
And they had to sign like ridiculous NDAs.
Right. So they couldn't tell anybody.
So they couldn't tell anybody. Like, that's why Disney has to go through all these measures. And I dislike it as a cultural thing. I'm personally of the opinion that if you get a movie spoiled for you and that makes the movie worse, then it wasn't really a good movie to begin with. I'm sure, let me rephrase that because I'm sure it probably was a good movie. It's if the point of the movie is to surprise you and it diminishes in value significantly if you know what occurs in the film, then it is, I would say, not as good as it should be. Like I use the example of Gone Girl a lot of the time. Gone Girl is a great movie. Gone Girl is a great movie whether or not you know the big twist in the middle of the film.
Right.
Because you can either know the big twist and still look at it and say, this is a really good movie, or you can not know the twist and the shock of it will still make it be a really good movie.
Right. I mean, I will say tonight or tomorrow or whenever you should watch the gallery season 2 because the length that they went to hide the finale spoiler at the end, like the fake script that they came out with to give to everybody.
Oh,
Is
I have seen screenshots of the
oh,
fake.
okay, you have seen it. Okay,
I have.
they went to ridiculous lengths though, like ridiculous, like and so much so to create what was it, concept art.
I've seen the concept art and it kicks ass.
So they went to that level. Even they even modeled a head for the fake person that they put in the script, and they put it on the actor in the dailies so that people thought it genuinely was going to be that thing up until Mark Hamill walked on set.
Wow, yeah, and I could just see Dave doing that too. Like knowing who that character is, I could just fucking see Dave. Like that is plausible.
Yeah.
That Dave was like, yeah, we're bringing this person back for the finale.
But now that they said that and all that, I'm like, can you bring that person back? Like, just do it. Like, go for it. Like,
right now, one of the big things going around the Star Wars spaces is the concept of a Star Wars What If show. And some of the discussion around it kind of makes me roll my eyes. But one thing that was brought up is, what if it actually was that person and not who it turned out to be?
Right.
What if it actually was? And I'm like,
okay, but now that you said a Star Wars What If, I've been watching the Marvel What If, and it's actually very good. So I'm thinking like I want to see a Star Wars version. Like that would be fucking great.
I've heard it's good. I also think that as far as the Star Wars fandom goes and the discourse they have of, we were robbed of this, we were robbed of that. That should have been this, it should have been that. I don't feel that would be helped by a What If. Like I love the Infinities comics. I really do. I don't think the concept of alternate stories with the same characters in this current canon is healthy for fan discussion right now.
Oh, I mean, that's probably true. I just think that based on what they have done with this Marvel What If, because you don't have to take it seriously. Like it's very much like let's just throw these characters in this situation and just see what it would happen if that happened. And I enjoy it. It's just like a fun little like, oh, that would be cute idea. Like, it's not in line with the real movies. So you're like, oh, that was fun. Like, you're like, I like that. And so I think it would be really cool because then you could theoretically do the stories that you couldn't do live action, like i.e. without recasting. So you could do like a young Luke Skywalker doing whatever, or you can expand on the old fucking EU stuff and you can say, what if somebody took Luke's hand and turned it into a fucking clone? You know what I mean? Like you can do those stories.
I see somebody's been reading the Luke discourse.
Oh my God. Did I tell you that's my theory for season 3?
That it turns out to be Luke and not Luke.
And then when you have Max playing him, it's okay that he looks slightly different than Mark Hamill because it is slightly different version. It's not Mark Hamill. It's a different person.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. I don't want to get into season 3 because we'll be here all day.
I love me some original Thrawn trilogy, but like Timothy Zahn really went ham on the clones. So there's like clones of everybody in that book.
And hey, as long as we get Triclops, I'd be happy.
Why did you have to remind me that the glove of Darth Vader happened? This was canon, by the way. People who say that they want to bring back the EU. So Palpatine had a kid, and that kid had another kid. So Palpatine's grandson, who was like this lost Jedi prince who lived in a secret Jedi city on Yavin 4. And this kid is in this series, this Glove of Darth Vader series, and literally never mentioned again.
Love that.
At all in the EU. Like the rest of the EU pretends that these books did not happen, but they are 100% canon
Love that.
to the EU. So, and Palpatine had multiple clones in the EU that he jumped around between every time they killed him.
Perfect.
I think one of the Wikipedia articles, one of the sections for the Wikipedia article for Palpatine and Legends literally begins with like, and then Palpatine showed up in another clone body. Like, it got ridiculously out of control.
Which is why the what if thing would be great, because then you can do all the ridiculous ass shit that you want and then call it a day.
I'm thinking of doing a Legends run at some point where I just go through and read, watch, do everything in Legends in order over the course of a year. And like,
you're like, maybe not.
maybe not. I don't know how I feel about, because like 80s and 90s, particularly 90s, Star Wars got weird.
Wait, you're telling me you don't want to see a camel and a TIE fighter? Is that what it is, by the way? I just made that animal up. I'm assuming that's what it is.
It's a horse.
It's a horse. It's a horse.
Actually,
it's a horse.
It's a horse.
But see, now I want to see horse people in Star Wars. Like, and then you could retcon it to be like, oh no, that wasn't a real horse. That was a horse person thing.
That was a horse person thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the EU got weird. And bringing it around to the Mandalorian, like, one thing that Clone Wars and Rebels and now the Mandalorian, the stuff that Dave has worked on, when it gets weird, like the goat assassin or the giant bug guy playing poker, it's got this special brand of weird that makes it feel like it fits in the universe.
Yeah.
As opposed to particularly some of the 90s Star Wars and early 2000s Star Wars that was just like, before it started coalescing down. So there was a period with the EU where it was like, just do whatever, throw it at the wall. George isn't paying attention. No one gives a shit. Just throw whatever you want. That's where the Luke Skywalker wife wars came from, which were, for the uninitiated, the Luke Skywalker wife wars, there was a period. So Timothy Zahn created the character of Mara Jade with the intention that she would work as a good match for Luke Skywalker. Then other authors came in and were like, nah, we're going to invent this other woman to hook up with Luke Skywalker. And he went through like a bunch of different female characters as different authors came in and wanted him to hook up with somebody else. And finally, Timothy Zahn had to come back and definitively have him get married to Mara Jade just to stop this ridiculousness that was going on. Like the time he fell in love with the spaceship. It's really weird. But jumping back to Mando,
jumping back.
I love these like off the cuff episodes where we're not following an episode script because
we go anywhere.
We go anywhere we want. It's nuts.
Speaking of going anywhere, the trailer goes pretty much everywhere.
It does. Well, I remember watching the trailer and rolling my eyes when I saw the Bantha.
I have that pulled up right now because that's the first shot you basically see.
And I was like, are we really going to go to Tatooine every season? Like, what's going? Then what they did on Tatooine, that made it, when I saw it, I didn't know about who Timothy Oliphant was actually playing.
Right.
And when we learned who Timothy Oliphant was actually playing, it went, oh, that's why we have to go back to Tatooine.
So when you saw the trailer, you saw, okay, Tatooine, next.
I was like, please, God, bring us to some different.
Right.
One thing I liked about the sequels, and some people didn't like it, and I didn't really like it in episode 7, but it kind of grew on me, was seeing different planets.
Yeah.
Maybe doing different things. And so, like, I had my question of why wasn't Jakku Tatooine? Well, it's because they wanted to do something a little bit different with it being like a scrap war-torn place, and they didn't want to do that to Tatooine. They also didn't want to literally have Rey come from Tatooine again. So
Yeah, the theories there would have been like, I
yep.
wonder whose child she is.
But going to places like Crate and
Mm.
Takadana and some of these other planets, one thing I liked about Mando season 1 was it jumped around to some different places like Navarro and the Ice Planet in episode 1. And then season 2 does take us to some interesting places.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, oh God, it's Tatooine again. We just had the most reference heavy episode.
And I was gonna say, then they do jump to some random ass ice planet. So you were like, oh, okay, another planet. But did you think in the trailer, were you like, oh crap, they're going to Hoth?
I thought it was Ilum because I didn't know, I hadn't put together that Ilum becomes Starkiller Base. Because remember, Fallen Order wouldn't come out and basically explicitly confirm for us that Ilum does become Starkiller Base until midway through this season. So I thought it might be Ilum because a bunch of the trailer, and I want to bring this up, a bunch of the trailer like is about Mando searching for the Jedi. And like we see that shot of Sasha Banks and she's wearing the hood and disappearing. Mm-hmm. It implies that she's a Jedi.
Yeah, for sure. And who did you think she was though in that scene?
So I didn't know. I had heard that like there was speculation she might be playing Sabine. That turned out not to be correct. Right. There was speculation she was some sort of Jedi. That turned out not to be correct. Like there was a lot of speculation on who this character is. The way it's framed in the trailer kind of makes her look like a Jedi.
I mean, because they literally are saying in the voiceover, or the armor or whatever is saying in the voiceover, she's like, this is, or no, I'm sorry. Mando says, you want me to bring him to
a race of
enemy sorcerers. And then they show her in the hood. Like, if that's not a misdirect, I don't know what is, because
it's a huge misdirect.
And thankfully, well, now that we know that she's not, but I genuinely was on the track that, oh yeah, no, she's a Jedi. Like the Jedi are quote unquote tracking Grogu, or I'm sorry, the child. And they know about him already and they want him. Like, so it definitely seemed like that.
They had a nice blend. I should have had more faith in them because they did have a nice blend in season 2 of locations we had seen before and locations that we had not seen before. Like the planet that he's on in episode 5, that one where he's going up against the magistrate, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Like I had never seen anything like that in Star Wars before. Or when they go to Tython in episode 6. Now, we'll get to why that's interesting that Tython looks like that in The Mandalorian. But let's just say that I've been catching up on the Star Wars comics. And so I will have some things to say about the planet Tython when we get there. But they did a good job of blending places we knew like Tatooine and Navarro with places like the planet that the magistrate is on, the Ice Caves planet, which is not Ilum, apparently. Of course, though, as we know, planets are only allowed to have one single biome.
Right. And then we also get to see him on a boat in the middle of the ocean in the trailer, which is just random, but we've never seen.
I thought he was on Mon Cala.
I know. I got really excited because I was like, oh, we're going to get to see ocean biomes ish more than, Camino. Like, we're going to get to see people interacting on a ocean planet.
And then he's on a boat.
He's just on a boat. But we did get to see
on a boat in
the background, we get to see the Corrins and the Mon Calamari, which is, I love aquatic Star Wars people. So bring them all. Like, they're great.
Right.
And we actually see earlier in the shot when he's in the dock, we do see the frog people. We don't know. I don't think we get a very good view of them. Oh no, we do actually. We get.
I don't think we had put together that Frog Lady is actually in the cantina in Mos Eisley in the first season. I don't think anybody had put together that.
Yeah, because you see them walking in front of him, but you don't. I guess you don't put it together that they're frog people. I guess it just doesn't like click. Because when I'm watching it, you really can't tell. It's just the back of their head, so it just looks like it could be like helmets or something. You don't really know what it is. So, but you get to see all the Corrin, so you're like, oh, we're on a cool ass aquatic planet, and I don't know. I like that shot, and then it jumps from the boat to the TIE fighters. Now that is probably the thing I want to say that people got the most excited about in this trailer was you got to see the two TIE fighters going either side of him and then opening up into attack mode.
So it's X-Wings.
Oh, what did I say? TIE fighters?
You said TIE fighters.
Okay, sorry, all of Star Wars.
Bradley, what the actual fuck, dude? How do you mix up X-Wings and TIE fighters?
I'm literally staring at it. I'm literally
You're
staring
looking
at
it on the screen
making
right
an
now.
X.
It's X. It's right there, Bradley. It's right. I know you can't read, but I assume you understand what the letter X is.
Anyway, the shot though of the X-wings, quote unquote dogfighting or flying through the clouds and chasing him was a really cool shot. I mean, I don't know what people thought that was going to be, but it was like, whoa, this is going to be something interesting.
Yeah, and I remember that was a big deal at the time because it features very prominently in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And we see throughout the second season that he interacts a bit more with the concept of the New Republic. Now, this was obviously, in hindsight, this was obviously building up to the Rangers of the New Republic show, mm-hmm. which they've pulled back on. Right. It's not in active development anymore. But you can kind of tell, especially with some of the stuff we'll get to with Cara Dune, that's the direction that they were sort of going. Mm-hmm. Was that they were kind of seeding that. There's all of the other shows kind of have backdoor pilots in this season, which we only found about in hindsight. That, oh, this was clearly setting up Rangers of the New Republic. Oh, this was clearly setting up, the other two shows.
Right.
Everything's supposed to be building up to something, which we're reasonably certain we know what that something is.
Moving on, there's a couple different random clips. We see the return of Brief Cargo. We see the return of Cara Dune. We see the Razor Crest is falling from space, basically. It's in flames. So that was an interesting shot. It's really quick, but it was.
Man, the Razor Crest gets the shit kicked out of it all of the time.
Yeah. But more notably, one of my more interesting favorite kind of parts that they kind of showed was the two Gamorrean guards, or two Gamorreans, I should say, because they weren't guards, they were just Gamorreans that were in this kind of like underground fight club, basically.
I remember when they confirmed season 2, I believe they did it with either a sketch or a mold of the Gamorreans. So that was literally the first thing we learned about season 2, mm-hmm. was that Gamorreans were going to be in it. And then season 2 was happening.
And not only were they just Gamorreans, they weren't lard Gamorreans. They were like normal looking, like almost muscular Gamorreans, which was interesting too. Because we're so used to seeing giant fat pig ones. So I mean,
maybe the ones in Jabba's palace like didn't have to do a lot of actual guarding.
Well, I think that's just got the joke. I think that's like kind of the joke that they've retroactively made is that the Gamorrean guards in Jabba's palace just kind of sat around all day and just didn't really do anything. They were supposed to be there, kind of look intimidating, but they, over time, it just became donut cops. And then the ones that we see in the trailer are literally fighting, with axe weapons or vibration axes or whatever they're called.
Vibro axes,
I guess. And then they're like trained, they're like MMA fighting. So they have to be like, kind of ripped.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the creatures in the second season. Like the trailer gives us the Gamorreans, they give us the Banthas, but they don't spoil a whole lot of some of the weird stuff we're actually going to see. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier of Dave just being able to put weird stuff in the season.
Right.
Like this this went to some interesting places and did some interesting things with what it could show on screen. Unfortunately, the trailer didn't spoil a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that I retroactively think about it, there were a lot of creatures in this second season. Just like new, not necessarily new, but like more costume design, more creature design, which I always love in Star Wars. Anytime you can put aliens on the screen, I love it because it makes the world familiar yet not as small, because you're like, oh, there's a whole nother species out there. There's a whole nother species out there. There's a whole nother species. Like every time they introduce a new type of alien, you're like, the world just gets bigger. So the more aliens, the better. I mean, that's my philosophy on aliens in Star Wars.
I would absolutely agree with that. And again, that's something the sequel trilogy did really well, was that it went to new places and showed us new types of creatures.
Right.
Some of those new types of creatures didn't actually make it into the film Constable Zubo, but they were there. They were designed. They exist. So Bradley, do you have any final thoughts on where we were at going into the second season, what you kind of expected from the second season?
Yeah, I mean, so going into it, I genuinely thought like, okay, he's kind of tasked at the end of this first season, hey, you got to go find the Jedi. So I knew that in my producer script writing brain, like, I'm like, okay, he's been given this quest at the beginning of the first season or the second season, go find the Jedi. Okay, well, we know what the season's about now. It's him going to find the Jedi and bringing the child to the Jedi. Now, since we already knew about Rosario Dawson and we knew which episode she appears in, because we kind of knew the titles by this point, I believe, or at least we figured them out at some point.
Yeah, I think we knew the first 4 going in, and then a few weeks before we found out the title of episode 5.
Right, and so I knew that by episode 5, that arc was going to be completed. In my brain, I was thinking like, okay, the arc is going to go from episode 1 to episode 5, and that's the whole finding the Jedi arc, which is technically the first half of the season. I'm putting in air quotes because it's only 8 episodes, but
right,
5-ish is half. So I knew that they were going to do a half a season and then a third or like the second act basically for the latter half of the season, which was going to be the overarching story, whatever that story would have been. So it's interesting to see, one, how it all kind of worked out, because it kind of did work out that way, but kind of didn't. It did it in an unexpected way. So I like how, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are able to subvert my expectations, because you think that they're going to do something and then they just go ahead and do everything in, the left field. So I was excited for this season because, like you said, we were deprived of any Star Wars material. So I was ready for anything.
I really had no idea what to expect. Like, obviously, I was excited for the season because I love Star Wars and I want more Star Wars. It was clouded a little bit by what was happening around me at the time, but I was still looking forward to it. I was having to process some of those things. I watched the trailer and I went, okay, this is what the rest. So you had a shorter view. You thought the Jedi thing was going to be resolved in 5 episodes. I thought it was going to be the rest of the series, because I didn't know about Bo-Katan. I didn't know about how important the Mandalorian plot was going to be. And I didn't know one major character who we haven't mentioned who shows up was going to be in it. I had heard rumors, but I was hoping that they were not true. But so I expected it was going to be the rest of the series. He was going to travel around the galaxy. He was going to do bounty hunter stuff. And that was going to be it. But the season obviously is very different. I'm looking forward to rewatching it. I haven't actually rewatched it since it aired.
Same.
I haven't sat down and rewatched it. So
this will be my first rewatch.
The last thing that I want to point out is the shot in the trailer of the child closing the closing the thing when the fighting starts. I love that so much.
It was really funny.
That's what got me more excited than anything, is like, oh, they could actually make the child more of a character in this. And without spoiling too much, they do make him into a character. They make him into a genocidal maniac. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
I think that's the third episode, I think.
It's the second one. And oh boy, was episode 2 controversial.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. Okay.
Oh boy. We've got some really excellent guests lined up to help us go back and rewatch some of these episodes.
And they're waiting in the corner right now. They're over there in line.
We've got them lined up in the corner. Right. We will release them one at a time. But I'm really excited to do this rewatch leading into, because it's going to lead us basically immediately into the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to have a few weeks where we're doing something else. I know we're doing a High Republic episode, but it is basically going to take us right into Book of Boba Fett. So it's a good thing to have a refresher.
I love it. Well, I'm excited. Until next time. Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze.
Did we forget something? Email us at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at goldsquadgaze, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at goldsquadrongays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post this podcast as well as exclusive video content.
Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze.